Visuals are cross-cultural. You don't need to understand a language in order to understand a visual, but you need to understand words. If it's in Japanese, I won't understand it, but I can understand Mount Fuji. I mean, we stop at a red light. Yeah. Immediately it tells us red says stop, green says go. And so I think culturally we are programmed in a certain way to accept and receive color in a certain way. And reinforcing that in our brands is just common sense, really. Because we're playing off of what is already familiar in people's minds, so we don't have to educate them about it. We just have to use them strategically to drive our own point across.
Thank you so much for joining me, Pete,
no worries.
on our
Pleasure.
next episode of Be The Drop. And this is a very exciting episode.
It is, yes.
We get to dive into visuals and brand strategy and release and launch the new narrative marketing Be The Drop brand look and assets.
Yes, it's really exciting. For you guys, and exciting for us to work on.
It's super exciting, even.
It is, yes.
And we'll explain
no pun
why.
intended.
Yeah, absolutely, pun intended. Yeah. All right, but to get the episode started, I know you've brought along your item of significance, and that's something that connects you with your community and the work that you do. So perhaps you could explain what you've brought along.
Well, it's something really simple, a pad and a pen, and it's something rudimentary. Perhaps I'm old school, but it just helps me to connect more with what I'm writing. And so whether I'm taking notes, or whether I'm thinking about an idea, or whether I'm just jotting down a headline or doodling, it just sort of frees me from the here and now. So I'm able to immerse myself more in my work, and it's real. It's not digital, so it's something I can touch and feel. And I suppose that really makes it real. I couldn't work without it.
No, it's interesting because you're a man after my own heart. I have books and books of notes, and for me it's a way of that creative process, and it's something that doesn't quite flow as much with a computer.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit in front of a computer and with a blank screen and just wait for inspiration, but this somehow sort of forces it out, and it's more physical and tangible and real. And I think that's really important in a creative process, because until we can really get our fingers messy, I don't think we really experience it and understand it and appreciate it.
So we're talking about a creative process, and for you that's a lot of a brand strategy. Can you perhaps paint a little picture about what that involves in a short sort of summary?
So we'd start off with, what does the client need? What's the client commissioning us to do? And just understanding their requirements, understanding their vision, where they want to take this, where they're coming from, what they don't want to do, and just understanding the client in the context of their own journey as an organization, as well as the client in the context of their competition. Everything else flows from there. So for example, if it's a logo, then how does that tie into the client's vision of where they want to be? How does that represent them? How is that logo an encapsulation of who they are? And so that's just at the very beginning, and then obviously need to have the client on board with us throughout, so we can refine and evolve as required.
So, and we're talking very much about a visual creative process as well, and particularly we're focusing on that today because of the exciting announcements that we're making around the visuals that we're doing with narrative marketing and Be The Drop. But you talked about how that represents, the creative process and what you're going through, and how that represents the client. Can you sort of explain the importance of the visual aspect of telling a brand story?
Picture says 1,000 words. I mean, that's the old cliche, but someone will say you need words to say that. But at the end of the day, I think as people respond really well to imagery. Now, whether that's black and white, whether that's pop art, whether that's color, there's something that grabs hold of us, because it's a snapshot in time, and the more interesting it is, the more it draws us in, and the more we sort of feel emotionally about it. We can hate it, we can love it, we can sort of be depressed by it. Pictures can move us. Visuals are cross-cultural. You don't need to understand a language in order to understand a visual, but you need to understand words. If it's in Japanese, I won't understand it, but I can understand Mount Fuji. So yeah, it's cross-cultural, it's international, and it's human.
And you mentioned there, earlier talking about the development of a logo as part of those company visuals. But beyond that, there's quite extensive layers of graphic and visual language. How does that all interplay, and what considerations do you need to give when developing that?
The logo is perhaps the tip of the iceberg of the brand, and that's what everyone sees and realizes and recognizes about a brand. For Nike, it's the swoosh. For Apple, it's the apple. But there's so much more than just a tick mark or a bite of an apple. It's an attitude, and it's an experience. And so what we call visual language, whether it's color, whether it's photography, whether it's graphic elements, all sort of help to create a picture of the brand, and they're little pieces of the puzzle that we can release strategically, so that every time the audience sees it, they realize, oh, that's X brand. And so we're sort of conditioning them to recognize us in different ways across different media. And so that gives us flexibility to communicate in a whole variety of different ways. Also, it's a bit of a little fun with the consumer, because each time they see us, it's in a fresh way.
And so that, you're talking about these different graphic elements and colors, typography, etc. How important is it to have a strategy around those to make sure that they all interplay and give the message, tell the story that brand wants to represent?
So again, let's take color for example. Coke is red, Pepsi is blue. So you'd never find them using each other's colors, because why would I spend millions of dollars trying to reinforce my competitor's recall? And so color is massively important from a brand perspective, because we respond to color, and colors mean a lot of things to us. IKEA is blue and yellow, and so whenever we see those colors, it sort of reinforces what the brand is, and it's a shortcut for us to understand, oh, okay, this is such and such brand talking to me. So that's color. Typography, massive. Every type has a voice. I mean, Comic Sans is perhaps the most vilified typeface. Everyone hates it, and there's a reason for it. Helvetica is so used in signage because it actually does not have a personality, and so it allows the message and the content to come through. Similarly, if you wanted a wedding, you usually have scripty sort of fonts because they're a little more lavish, a little more fancy. There's other things you could just use, like little circles, for example, or squares, or just in different ways that are unique to you. To make your point and to drive home the uniqueness of who you are.
And I really liked that color is a shortcut.
It is.
Yeah. So
we stop at a red light. Yeah. Immediately it tells us red says stop, green says go. And so I think culturally we are programmed in a certain way to accept and receive color in a certain way.
And certainly when you think about those foundational building blocks of learning and education, and color is one of those really early learning.
Absolutely. And so picking up on that and reinforcing that in our brands is just common sense, really, because we're playing off of what is already familiar in people's minds, so we don't have to educate them about it. We just have to use them strategically to drive our own point across. So it's not really being about what do I think, but it's what's right for the brand. And then the way to answer that is, where is the brand going? Who is the brand talking to? What does the brand want to achieve? So that's the sort of homework that we do right up front, so that when we come down to making these choices, hopefully the answers that we get to those fundamental questions sort of inform these decisions.
Yeah, so it's not just like, I like blue.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So it's got to be much more strategic about how that works.
Yeah.
There's now a lot, in today's communication, a lot of that is happening in a digital, online, social space. Is there any sort of different approach to visuals on these platforms and how you approach that?
The digital format has caused us to rethink how we use imagery. At the moment, image really is everything, because it's a click now or lose me forever sort of environment. And so all the more reason for me to have a really strong image, but at the same time, it's not just an image but a message as well. So it's not enough to see someone just standing with their arms thrown open wide in a beach. I also need to see, oh, this is telling me that I can go to Bali for $100. So it's great to have an image as a hook, but you need to have a message as a secondary layer to ensure that I'm engaged. So it's not only about images, but it's about how images work with text and messages to drive home the point.
So yeah, the visual is grabbing that attention, and the words
keep me there or move me on. So it's a sort of way to manage me in a sense. So, you know, words tell me, okay, click here, okay, I click here. Or, you know, think about this or make a decision in my head, because just having an image would not help me do that, would not be useful.
No, so it's got to be layered with the
That's right,
the
they play
message.
off of each other.
Yeah,
that's right.
To really get that action and motivate.
Absolutely. So visual storytelling in that sense is a combination of both powerful imagery and very relevant and powerful messaging. Because, you know, I don't know if you remember an old Apple campaign, we just had a picture of Picasso and it just said think different. And that's all. But it's so powerful because it was a powerful image. The image talked about a very powerful painter. He had his own set of values that he stood for: rebel, bold, courageous, all that. But it just says think different, and that is inspiring and tells you, hey, you could be like this with Apple.
Yeah, you could be the next Picasso.
Might. Yeah, not me, but anyway.
No, not me either. Okay, so now let's talk about
the big one.
Wow. Yeah. So narrative marketing and Be the Drop has gone on a little journey too.
They have, yes.
Yeah, so, and they obviously started at different times and they each sort of had their own visual identity going along. But the problem was that they weren't talking together. So that's when I came to Nicknack and said, okay, I need these to talk.
Yeah.
And perhaps you can explain a little bit about that process and how that visual storytelling has come about.
So I think understanding from yourself as to what the journey has been thus far, because that's something that we haven't been a part of. And so it was key for us to understand from you, not just where the brand has been or the brands have been, but where you want to take them and your reasons for, you know, wanting to find the synergy. Now, whereas they may have been fine to work in isolation of each other in the past, you're wanting to bring them together to achieve those commercial synergies, social media synergies, so that they're not looking like they're separate children but belonging to the same family. Have their own voices, have their own purpose and objectives business-wise, and have their own solutions that they deliver to customers. But again, make them look like they're from the same family. So that leverages you as being, a solutions provider that is not just into a branding or visual storytelling, but it's also about either podcast and making things work. So it just helps you spread your arms wider, I suppose, and shows you to be across more things. As a business person. And
then we threw a bit of a curly one in there for you as well, because we, at narrative marketing and through Be the Drop, we believe that storytelling is a superpower.
Yes.
So we said, well, we need to supercharge these brands a little bit too.
Yeah. And that was, conversations like that really inspire us, because you may think of it and you may use the word superpower loosely, and I don't know how, wedded you were to that, but we picked up on that as being a sort of differentiator, where when you use something as super, yes, you may be exaggerating, yes, you may be adding to the truth, so to speak, but visually it's very, again, it's shortcut. So when I see something that has that superpower cartoon kind of effect, immediately in my mind I think of fun, I think of storytelling, I think of something that is going to speak to me. And so from the word narrative and storytelling and super and comics, it sort of came together as hey, let's can this work?
Yeah, and certainly we try to have fun. I mean, we're very serious about delivering results and what we do.
Yes.
But we have fun and we love what we do.
And that comes through with the work, in that it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, But at the end of the day, the content is real. It provides value. It makes sense, and it's compelling.
Well, we're very excited to let it loose on the public.
We're excited to see how it's going to work. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pete, for joining me
No
this
worries.
week on
Pleasure.
Be the Drop, but not quite off the hook yet.
Oh, yes.
To finish, in conclusion, I'd like to know Pete's Be the Drop tip. So that's your top communication tip.
Don't try to be something you're not, because people can pick up on that. I mean, body language, people can pick up on that in body language, and you can, instantly tell or get a feeling if I'm trying to fake it. And brands are like that. If you try to make the brand something it's not, or people will sooner or later find out. And so in terms of positioning yourself as a person or a company or service or product, whatever, is be honest. Try to find that one thing that makes you special. It may not be massive, it may not be incredible or profound, but it's you. It's unique. It's who you are. And that says volumes, and people are quite happy to interact with honesty and transparency, and that makes you real.
Oh, I love that. Thank you very much.
No worries.